You are 100% certain that there are 1,000 plus Al-Qaeda-trained fighters within the United States borders?
Well, Al-Qaeda says they trained and deployed 1,000 for this attack. First off, I think there's more than 1,000 Al-Qaeda members in the United States. But for the Homeland attack, that number is based on what Al-Qaeda is saying, so they could exaggerate it. However, they did have about 1,400 in the Hamas attack, so the number is not off from what they did in the first round of attacks.
Former CIA targeter Sarah Adams just made a chilling revelation on the Shawn Ryan Show. According to her, there are over 1,000 Al-Qaeda-trained fighters already inside the United States. 1,000, not overseas, not planning to come in, they're already here. When Shawn asked her directly, "Are you 100% certain?" she did not flinch. Each cell is quite small, deliberately cut off from the others. That way, if one is exposed, the rest stay hidden. Let's watch the video of Sarah Adams exposing this truth. It might scare you, it might shock you, but it's something you have to know. Let's take a look.
Scott told me that Al-Qaeda is basically predicting that the casualty count will be between 50 and 60,000 Americans dead. Am I wrong on that?
So I don't know the count that they're predicting. What I do know is Al-Qaeda trained and sent 1,000 attackers.
1,000 attackers. When did they come through?
So they finished training and they deployed them. Now, depending on how they come through, it could take different times, right? So the fastest I've seen an Afghan leave Afghanistan and get over the border illegally is about 3 weeks. Now, if you get a tourist visa and a Saudi's passport, he can fly the day after he gets his visa, right? So it depends, because they are fine getting people in however they can get them in, and they actually prefer legal immigration, as you can imagine, because they want basically the attackers to sit here and wait. If they're legal, they're not going to raise any alarm bells.
So wait a minute.
That way they're going to go under the ICE radar, which is a problem, because America is focused on illegal aliens, but not on the illegal aliens that will actually harm and kill innocent civilians on the name of Islam.
I just want to clarify. You are 100% certain that there are 1,000 plus Al-Qaeda-trained fighters within the United States borders?
Well, Al-Qaeda says they trained and deployed 1,000 for this attack. First off, I think there's more than 1,000 Al-Qaeda members in the United States. But for the Homeland attack, that number is based on what Al-Qaeda is saying, so they could exaggerate it. However, they did have about 1,400 in the Hamas attack, so the number is not off from what they did in the first round of attacks.
Is there any indication of what kind of attacks these are going to be? Well, actually, before we get into that, how old is this information?
I mean, it's ongoing. So the training's already done, right? So all the training info is now old because they trained all the Homeland attackers, if that makes sense. So like next week, you're not going to get info of a Homeland attacker probably at a terrorist camp because it's already done. So all this has been in the last year.
So it's been over a year. It's been a year.
Because this was a continuation. So they planned October 7th first, and then they rolled into planning this after.
That is absolutely a crazy piece of information. There's literally people waiting to be deployed to kill Americans from Al-Qaeda. From Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is no different than Hamas, no different than Hezbollah, no different than ISIS. They're the same. They have the same goal, and they're just waiting to be deployed. According to what she's saying, there's 1,000 people. That is effed up.
Are we next, or is Europe next?
I think the embassy attacks are next, in my opinion.
What are they waiting for the embassies?
I don't think they're waiting. I think it took time to train them. They've now approved them, and they've now moved into the operational stage.
What about the U.S.?
So the U.S., from what we've seen, I told you about the camps, right? That there's the advanced urban warfare. So we think it's going to look like October 7th, but it's actually based on, and October 7th was probably also based on it. It's based on the Mumbai attacks that occurred 15 years ago in Delhi, India. And we believe this for multiple reasons.
What happened there? before we dig into
Yeah,
that.
we talked about this. I think it was my first episode. It was basically a terrorist group, Lashkar-e-Taiba. They did a number. It's called swarming attacks. They did a number of attacks in New Delhi, at a hotel, the Taj Mahal, I believe it was called, at like basically the train station, etc. The interesting thing about it, and this is why they're going to employ it now, is those terrorists were given kind of like latitude. One, they could change the location they were attacking, and they could change the modus operandi they were using. So for example, when they went into the train station, it was supposed to be a bombing. When they got in there, they said, wow, we can kill more people just shooting them than putting the bomb together, and they shot them. Another thing that they did is in real time, information was being passed to them. So when they were in the Taj Mahal, they were being told what was on the press and what the police were doing, and they changed basically some of their movements in the hotel to make the attack last longer, okay? So this is the part that's going to be different, right? So Al-Qaeda always wants to innovate when it does its next attack, right? So I've already told you about the innovation of the suicide vests. Well, do you know we really haven't had a suicide bombing in the United States ever? There's the Nashville guy who did the strange, blew himself up in the car early in the morning when no one was around. That's kind of it.
The AT&T building?
Yep. We have not had a man walk up to a building with a suicide vest on in the United States. Americans don't understand this. Al-Qaeda knows this, right? So this is new and innovative, especially now. You don't have to walk upside of the building. You can walk in the building because of the advancement of the vest. The other thing is, in the United States, we haven't had Fedayeen attackers. Do you know what this is? I mean, you'll know when I explain it. If you fought in like...
Israel had Fedayeen attackers between 1948 until, I believe, 1967. We had attacks nonstop in Israel on civilians by Muslim Fedayeen terrorist units.
I don't know, Ramadi, Fallujah. You've seen these. So the concept is the terrorist fights to the death. So he's not exactly a suicide bomber, but he will fight till either all of us are dead or all of his people are dead, right? So this can go on for multiple days, like the plan was for Mumbai, for example. So we think it's going to be a swarming attack, right? Multiple different attacks at one time across multiple cities. We think there will be suicide bombers just because some of the attackers went through suicide bomber training and they have these vests, right?
Very similar to the 7/7 attacks that happened in the UK. A few attacks took place primarily at the same time. People were not able to wake up from this attack, and another attack happened, and then another attack happened, and more people were added to the death toll. Same thing happened on October 7th.
Right? And then we think there's these Fedayeen attackers who will carry on until they're killed. The Fedayeen matters, right? I was watching, I want to say it was like 8 months ago.
Let me just rephrase that. So these guys are trained, and we already overlaid the video of their training, and they are going to fight until they're killed.
Yes.
There's no stopping them.
Exactly. And that matters, right? So I was watching this video, and it was a suicide bombing in Kabul years ago. And it was the bomber blew up, okay? And then everyone starts moving in. The first responders move in, right? And then another guy walks in and blows up. We know this is a tactic, right? But if Americans don't understand this as a tactic and don't understand these attackers are going to fight to the death, think about that. So battle's going on. The attacker surrenders, right? He might have the suicide vest. We let our guard down. That man came to die, right? He's going to fight till he dies or you dies. So we can't let our guards down, and they know our weakness, right? So we have to be very careful that we don't have more people die in these second and third order effects of not knowing their intent.
What kind of places do you think they're going to target?
So this is what's complicated. So
the same thing also happened with the hunt of bin Laden. They had an informant, a guy from Jordan who supported Al-Qaeda, who had ties with Al-Qaeda, and then he disappeared for a few months. And then he got back with information saying, hey, I have ties. I found the second top man in Al-Qaeda, and they met him inside a military base in Afghanistan. And then what happened? They lowered their guards. They said, what, are we going to interrogate him on the way in? Of course not. We don't want to intimidate him. So he drove in, and then the CIA operatives, top CIA operatives, gathered around the car. He walked out with a robe. They said, get your hand out of the robe, as all of them are standing around the guy. And kaboom, he explodes right next to them, killing All of them. Americans are not used to this.
Al-Qaeda's preference, as you can imagine, is symbols of the U.S. or anything that causes economic damage, right? So Capitol is a great symbol. Capitol was actually in, I think the Capitol is, a lot of people are targeting it, but the Capitol was in their propaganda just as 9/11 when they were memorializing 9/11, right? So the Capitol matters. I feel like bridges or any kind of public transportation always matters because it puts costs against us and it causes fear. But here's where it gets complicated. So remember, the terrorists might have their goal is they're going to attack the metro in DC, right? But remember, some of these terrorists are going to be ISIS. And remember, they can change location. So the ISIS guy might go down the metro and say, there's not many people down here. I'll kill 20, but there's a event going on. I'm going to go up there, right? And because ISIS is a little different. ISIS just wants mass casualty. So it's going to be interesting how it works with terrorists that came from different backgrounds and when they get choice.
Guys, I'll include the full video in the description below. This is just a small portion of a 1 hour and 50-minute podcast. Shawn Ryan Show. Great show. This is just a small portion. I'm going to attach the full video in the link in the description. She's pretty much saying that America should be prepared. Terrorist sleeper cells of Al-Qaeda are getting ready to detonate at any moment. July 4th is coming up. Please, if you're American and you're watching this, be safe this July 4th. Be safe. Protect yourself. Listen to the authorities. Don't gather and don't go to places that are unnecessary. Again, there's no information behind this, but if they threat you, believe them. If they say something, believe them. Okay? Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to support me financially, you can do so through Buy Me Coffee in the link in the description. I'll see you again in the next video. Bye-bye.